Recording.
And just a reminder, Peter and I are recording this part of the presentation, but we're going to stop the recording for the shares.
Great.
All right.
So maybe before this first slide, I'll just tee up challenge in general. We're going to offer 6 distinctions on challenge and how to think about challenge. Challenge as men's culture, in other words, as component of how we are interacting with each other. Challenge as unwanted invasion of our lives. Challenge as how we create challenge for ourselves in maybe ways that aren't helpful. And reframes that help us think about challenge in a way that is serves our growth. So we'll just kick it off here. So the first question, sort of sacred question: how do we individually receive challenge from the world? There's this great quote, which many of you may have heard: "Life is happening for us, not to us." And I'm just the essence of this way of thinking of it is, when we are challenged by the world or by other men or by our partner or by our children or by a whole bunch of variables and factors coming in at once, what is the limiting factor to our ability to maintain our center amidst the storm? And it's our nervous system. And so what we just practiced with a little bit of that breath work is inviting in the intensity, inviting in the challenge as a way of expanding our capacity to maintain this ability to self-regulate and this ability to self-parent when the storm is really strong. It doesn't mean that we have to receive all challenges and take them on as sort of like dutiful men. We can also say, no, I'm not up for that, or that doesn't work for me, and that's part of self-parenting. And so this is part of what it is to be in men's community as well, because as we invoke a culture of challenging each other in healthy men's community, like, hey, I want to hold you to your best, or hey, I don't know that that's helping you. How we are practicing in our day-to-day life mirrors how we can receive that challenge in group, and vice versa. So go ahead, Andrew.
All right. So how do we receive challenge from other, as in another being? And extending on what Peter shared in the last slide, a lot of how we approach this has to do with our boundaries. Basically, we have to define what we're a no to, basically when and how we're not okay with receiving challenge. If it's violent, if it's aggressive, if it's at the wrong time, like, hey, I'm busy, I can't hear this now. You need to know where your no is in order to find your yes. Where are you willing to actually receive the challenge from someone else graciously? And I put on here masculine and feminine challenge because there are different flavors to this. You can feel the flavor of challenge that we naturally gravitate towards in a group full of men right here, versus the flavor of challenge that we might have with our feminine partner. And I make the distinction between feminine and female because some of us might be with same gender partners, but there's always a masculine feminine interplay here. And the basic distinction that I see is the feminine challenge comes from a place of desire. A feminine partner will want to see us more on purpose, stronger, more disciplined, and they'll express that through desire. I hear it from my wife, and it hurts sometimes, but it hurts so good. You know, she'll say, "Oh, you know, I really want to see you get up earlier and do your exercise." And it's different than masculine challenge, which is cutting. It's decisive. It's, hey, you didn't show up on time, I want you to be on time next time. So you can feel the difference there. All of us are integrated beings. We're capable of both of these modes of challenge, and we're capable of receiving both of these. And really the stance with all of these is a stance of welcoming. I think about the scene from The Matrix. I'm sure most of you have seen The Matrix, where Neo is facing off. And what does he do? Bring it. You know, it's about welcoming the challenge because it's ultimately in service of me and my growth and my prayer in the world. Peter, I'll tag back to you.
Great. And I just want to thank guys for comments. Maybe we'll just hold those to the end as we move through these. So yeah, this next sort of concept of challenge is we're not always on the receiving end of challenge. Sometimes we're on the creating end of challenge, the generating end of challenge. Sometimes we're creating helpful stretches and accountability for ourselves, you know, as business people, as entrepreneurs, as romantic partners, as parents, as community members, going that extra mile. Of course, this, you know, dovetails with the same capacity to boundary and recognize what's too much. It also it plays with that capacity to self-parent. Is this part of me that wants to always stretch? Is that part actually the sort of generative adult of me, or is that more of a sort of inner protector that is just afraid of rocking the boat, and so I'm willing to just stretch myself and stretch myself and stretch myself so that everybody else can have a peaceful experience, but I'm kind of left broke off over here? And so right relationship with self, and I put service orientation, meaning like when we're in and of service to something larger than ourselves, be it children, or say a watershed, or an ecological zone, or bird or plant species, it can trigger a kind of sacred protector archetype in us as men to orient and let the distractions kind of melt away. So recognizing, I guess the point is recognizing what we're in service of when we try to create helpful challenge. And then just lastly, that just a frame that's helpful for this is are we doing this to always be better? Are we doing this to always improve because of some cultural program or because of some parental programming? Or are we doing this because we sense that a kind of fissure in our identity, a positive fissure, like as they would say in the old sweat houses of the Highland Mayan Guatemalan people, crack your bark. Are we cracking our bark to become bigger, identified with a new identity, or are we just rearranging the furniture to keep the peace?
Thank you, Peter. So extending on that, how do we create helpful challenge for other, as in someone else? And again, like with attuning to ourselves and what we're actually okay with on the receiving end, on the giving end, we need to attune to permission and boundaries with another person. There's something so magical, and it almost feels antiquated about asking permission really explicitly. Hey, can I challenge you on that? And really sitting with any answer is okay. It's so simple, it's often overlooked. Boundaries, again, listening to what the expressions of boundaries are that are coming back to you. And this can be verbal, this can be somatic, you know, really tracking someone at the physical level of, okay, it doesn't actually seem like this person is okay with this, or they're like Neo and they're like, okay, bring it, ready for your challenge. Spot and claim projection. So I imagine this language is familiar to most guys at this point. What we mean by projection is basically what I think and believe that I might put onto someone else. So if someone else appears weak to me and I want to challenge them on it, is that about them? Is that about me bringing them into a stance of more strength? Or is it because I'm not okay with my own weakness and I want them to be the weak one so I don't have to feel it? And then asking yourself the question, how can I serve and free this person? Again, back to Peter's previous slide, it's the service orientation. It's not how can I get one up on this other guy or this other person, but here's someone else who's come into my life and I know that they're capable of more. So how do I speak and act in a way that calls that out of them in a way that they're okay with and that they've opted in for. And then believe in them. It sounds so simple, but rather than just dropping a challenge and letting someone else deal with it, really sitting with, okay, I'm offering this challenge in service, and so I'm going to sit here and actually believe in them to rise to it. Peter, I'll kick it back to you.
Cool. And so as part of this projection piece, this tendency to yeah, like, you know, these aren't cameras, these are projectors, right? These eyes. And so as we have both the tendency to see a projection of what's in here, as well as take personally when a challenge comes in as some reflection or some insult, or that's not fair, or well, if you understood what it would be, what it's like in my life, and so on, there's kind of a thread that kind of harkens back to the spirit of that breath work, which is like, what is our inner capacity to be with discomfort? What is our inner capacity to recognize our either our defensiveness, our taking things personally, or our agenda? And we don't have to just take things personally when they come in. Sometimes we can take things personally when we go out. So like Andrew said, I can be in a men's group with a man and say, I'm just really charged. He just seems so weak. Well, that is a bit of almost like a defensive or personal agenda. And so noticing whenever we have a charge, either really positively or really negatively, is a kind of, indicator that there's a piece of reclamation of shadow to be done. And so the work is to stay in the fire and not do anything, right? So in the men's group, when there's really desire to give feedback, stay in the fire of that and just let it melt you. When you're being challenged in that way and you want to throw back and be defensive, let it melt you before you throw up a boundary. Discerning between discomfort and trauma is this last piece. Just like there's a difference between challenge coming at us and going, I'm in the fire, I'm in the fire, I'm in the fire. Oh, fuck, I'm burning. And I'm in the fire. I'm really breathing, and I'm going to step out. Right. And so that's the key place to work that edge, that inner yoga of I'm working shadow. The shadow is now consuming me.
Thank you. Last, we're going to wrap up with what we call the stance of the exalted enemy. And really with this last slide, I want to give credit to a teacher of Peter's and mine, Martine Prechtel, who I first heard this term exalted enemy from. And what this refers to is there's always a third thing that's being fed by the challenge. Rather than it being me versus you, or me versus him, or me versus my partner, look to what does our challenge serve? What are we glorifying by being willing to grapple with one another? And in a lot of men's circles, the word competition has become a dirty word. You know, it's like, it's not okay as an evolved man to get into competition. But if you trace back the word root, competition literally means to strive together or to struggle together. And if you think about, if any of you have ever been in martial arts, when you're facing off against someone else, yes, there is a winner or a loser, or there's a draw, but the winner is always the art. The art always wins when two people are willing to face each other within the structure. And as part of that, we need to be able to celebrate and honor those willing to challenge you. So every martial arts bout, what does it begin with? A bow. We literally face our opponent and thank them for being willing to challenge us so that we can grow, and that together we can grow the art form. Same with Socratic dialogue. So two people take opposing points on an issue and hash it out for the collective understanding. And you can feel the difference between that and a lot of what we're probably seeing on Facebook these days, where there really is this assumption that there's a right answer and someone's going to get it and someone else is going to be proven wrong and lose. And what's really glorified by that? What wins when there's this zero-sum stance, when we're not raising up our enemy or raising up our opponent and saying, this person is an expression of something that grows me and grows our collective beauty and understanding. So I'm going to stop the screen share here.